The story of Scorn revolves around recycling, procreation, and death, but one major aspect of Scorn which could have been easily dismissed is the ability to be reborn. According to the art book and the murals in the polis section of the Citadel, the inhabitants of Scorn, or at least the higher class populace, had strong obsession with the idea of being ascended to a higher plane, and having the ability to transfer their consciousness regardless to their gender. The mural where a tentacled head is seen latching to human brains is the depiction of consciousness. Towards the very end, it's revealed how in fact the populace managed to successfully transfer one's consciousness to synthesized host bodies known as shells. The protagonist is operated on by a mechanical doctor, which is symbolic of Scorn's mythology and religious beliefs to be the representation of one of their deities, who attaches a tether from his brain to a network of brain matters on the ceiling, which allows the protagonist to wake up in a new body. Despite this advanced technology and remarkable breakthrough, the transference is limited, as after a short while, the protagonist's consciousness is kicked out of the host's body back into his original heavily injured body. This displays how, despite managing to successfully transfer consciousness after what seems to be hundreds, if not thousands of years, it only worked to some degree, as a short distance type of thing, more like a beta than full release. But what the civilization never managed to achieve was the ability to be completely reborn, or the ability to challenge death and obtain immortality. Scorn civilization are described to have believed the human body is disposable, but they dwelled on the idea that consciousness is eternal, and they have been trying to find a way to extract consciousness. That's why so many corpses are seen in the polis left on the surgical beds with their brains tethered to the ceiling network, which shows that they have all tried to experiment with consciousness transference. This extreme obsession with being able to reach the state of eternity, whether by just being reborn or transferring consciousness, seemingly came from consistent state of war, which doomed the civilization and destroyed their world, poisoning the air, creating large clouds of toxic chemicals formed from the massive use of chemical weapons. The book does mention the thick clouds in the sky, which have a yellow tint, obstructing the line of view, are from the use of mustard gas. Maybe the chemical weapon variation they used had a much longer shelf life, rendering the outside into a wasteland devoid of any life. Therefore, Scorn being a world riddled in war, pain, misery, and death, led to the formation of a new religion, with the main ideology being preservation. All the human identities in Scorn have different shape, which is explained to be the result of generations of experimentation. For example, the homunculi are descendants of humans who were experimented on for consumption, but for some reason, with their bodies shrinking, their brain mass in comparison to their body size stayed large, making them masters of engineering and highly intelligent beings, who of course recycle human corpses to create the mighty cyborgs, possibly used in lines of war. The mid-class populace of Scorn, on the other hand, seem to have more protective bone structure, creating some sort of resistance to different types of harm. But on the other hand, their mouths have been shut, as if consumption has been altered due to lack of resources and their dependence on using humans as resources. The really grim part about anything and everything being used as resources, however, is not using humans or corpses, but synthesizing a creature named the Crater Queen, who spits out parasitic creatures who are also seemingly used for resources, that being energy, fuel, and even food. Any dystopian civilization in desperate times, however, stoops low and commits ethically questionable actions, which shames anyone reflecting on it. The lowest and the most miserable populace class is known as mold men, consisting of both men and women who have been bred and modified for generations to render them defenseless. Mold men, unlike other variations of humans, in fact resemble current humans the most. Apart from being mutilated, they have mouths and noses, or used to, and their bone structure seems the most human. It's no surprise that Scorn civilization kept this class submissive, not modifying them to be resistant to harm such as falls, injury, and other aspects. These entities are the enslaved and underprivileged class of the society who are are used as the go-to resources for anything, with them being pre-processed and pre-packaged into dried nuggets which can be cracked open for any purpose, and that even being body parts. It's no surprise why they believe human body is disposable and don't care much about it, as every single class has gone through some sort of experiment and modification. This brings us back to the topic that despite the cruelty of this civilization, who seemingly lost their humanity and sense of empathy and compassion long ago, becoming less and less human after each war, they accomplished major breakthroughs in science, as of course they lost any ethics and morality, experimenting on humans without any question. Scorn managed to achieve limited transference of consciousness, but they never managed to achieve full independent transference, or in other words, rebirth. It's no coincidence that their mythological deity resembles God Vishnu, the god of preservation in Hinduism, a religion which believes in reincarnation. It's also no coincidence the mechanical doctor is in the shape of their god, transferring their consciousness into synthesized bodies known as shells. The people, monks or higher class, and influential people who had the privilege of using this technology were all blessed by a representation of their god, who would bless them with the transference or ascension, which in their belief is being reborn or reincarnated. Now, the irony is, the more advanced this civilization became, the more cruel and primitive they became. Imagine a ghost town filled with hostile animals, spiders, and other beings, depicting the fall of a thriving and prospering civilization. This is what became of Scorn, a world in the brink of achieving immortality, toppled down by their own greed and selfishness, dismissing the comfort and living conditions of others. The advanced weapons they created themselves due to having many breakthroughs in science caused them their own destruction. I wouldn't be surprised if the war broke out because of the imbalance in society, many being enslaved such as the mold men, many disregarded and forced to work non-stop in assembly or the factory, and many bred to be food such as the human culi, who in fact became powerful themselves and very intelligent. It's possibly the dismissed and ignored classes who caused the wars against the higher classes, who were busy with their own affairs wanting to achieve immortality, as this breakthrough would only be exclusive to the higher-ups, not the lower-class citizens. As a matter of fact, they would be completely deprived of such privilege. This brings us to the very end, when the protagonist possesses one of the shells, detaches a blade from the deity figure so he can be repeatedly stabbed. The end goal in here is to go through a large gate which looks like a portal, which I have a few theories about. But before we get into that, let's question why the protagonist would willingly want to be stabbed and suffer an excruciating pain. Well, thanks to a comment I got in one of my previous videos, there's a belief in many religions or ideologies that pain is a gateway for reaching divinity and the unseen world, a world only preserved for the dead. The idea is that excruciating pain and brink of death will allow one to achieve this level and travel to this world. Dwelling on this thought makes a lot of sense to why the mechanical doctor or the representation of Scorn's religious deity punishes the visitors so much. It seems as if bringing the people to the brink of death and inflicting pain on them allows them to jump from one body to another, and maybe they could even be reborn in a new body. Maybe that's why the first protagonist flashes between two bodies as he seems to be injured or close to death. Then the second protagonist, becoming covered in white goo, wakes up in the Genesis wall as a new person. There's so much to explore here, but I leave it at this for this topic, not to get too sidetracked from the main point in this video. Therefore, this protagonist, who seems to have somehow unlocked the ability to jump through bodies and be reborn, tries to go through the final gate, but he loses the ability to control the shell body, being kicked back to his own dying body, which gets overtaken by the parasite. He seems to have wanted to experience pain, hence why he took the blade from the mythological figure. It's possible the hive mind signal gets weaker, but it could also be the protagonist who is getting weaker and losing his life, hence why he stops feeling pain as much, and that's why the consciousness gets kicked back into his body. The question remains, however, if now he would be able to get into another body after the parasite overtakes attacks him, unless the parasite in fact keeps him alive, making him get stuck and be trapped, never able to escape again. As the book even suggested, the parasite and the protagonist's relationship was more symbiotic, meaning they could coexist, and that is confirmed with one buddy already trapped in the parasite who is alive. Alright, we came this far. I promise I won't get sidetracked anymore. Let's talk about the final gate, or the portal. I have a few theories about what this gate might be, but there's no definitive answer and it's only my personal speculation. So don't rage in the comments that I didn't explain anything and they are just speculations, because you're goddamn right. They absolutely are. The very first theory is that the gate at the end is the representation of afterlife, or whatever world Scorn believes in passing the boundaries of their physical world. After one successfully transfers their consciousness, they might be able to travel to the afterlife. So essentially, if this theory is correct, the protagonist is one of the few who managed to do so. But it still doesn't explain why he would carry his battered and injured body, if the afterlife is a metaphysical world and only requires the consciousness. The second theory I have for the gate goes a little harder. Imagine if the entirety of the protagonist's journey was to enter the protected world of Scorn, hiding behind the lair, which has been long abandoned due to war. Maybe the Scorn society created this portal to enter a new realm, a new planet, or even a supernatural realm associated to their metaphysical beliefs. This war-torn world was abandoned as the skies are poisoned with chemical weapons, and the constructions are littered with hostile creatures. So what else to do than just to abandon this realm or planet just to travel to another, which they hopefully won't destroy again. So this might explain why the protagonist is carrying his original body to the gate, as the civilization didn't fully manage to transfer consciousness. So for the protagonist to survive, he would have to pass the gate and reach the Scorn's new civilization where he would be treated. The third theory I have for this gate goes a little crazier. What if the entire journey of the protagonist was nothing but an elaborate test? A test where the civilization chooses the fittest to enter their new world, a world which only requires the strongest in case of any future war or catastrophe. The Genesis Wall, being the main source of birth, depicts how only select few survive. The very first problem the newborns face is the big fall on their back from the wall, which could instantly cause critical injuries to someone. The second problem is the poisonous gas in the air, which could simply kill someone after a short while. The next issue is navigating the way in the misty path back to the shelter in the assembly, and these are the very first tame problems a newborn would face. They then have to find a way to solve the puzzles, they have to battle the crater creatures, and so much more. So, in theory, it's quite plausible that this cruel civilization did in fact leave this world behind, leaving a portal open for any newborns managing to pass the tests and cross the gate. After all, if Scorn has managed to reach the full potential of transferring consciousness, which could mean achieving immortality, only select few should deserve such a power and privilege. The fittest of all in such a hostile world, especially a civilization as cruel as this, who believed human body is disposable and their bodies could be simply recycled or even used, to the point of being bred into submission and enslavement. Right folks, I'm gonna end the video right here, as otherwise it would get too long, and I have too many theories to share with you in the future videos. So not to miss out on them, make sure to stay tuned by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. And also, if you have any theories of your own, make sure to share them with me on my subreddit or Twitter. It's been your host Star, thank you for being here, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care.